With Blue Link Plus, you can access your Hyundai Tucson Limited remotely. Doors unlocked, temperature set, lost car found.
There it is.
Get complimentary class-leading Blue Link Plus. Call 562-314-4603 for complete details.
You've discovered your link to GoPowerCat.com's PowerCat podcast. Now, here's your host, GoPowerCat.com publisher, Tim Fitzgerald.
Welcome to another edition of the PowerCat Questions podcast. Tim Fitzgerald, Zach Carlson, Ryan Gilbert here at the GoPowerCat home office and dog spa. They're everywhere. I think they're mutating and multiplying. Man, what a week for the Big 12 in basketball. So dominant. So dominant.
On Friday and Saturday they were.
Man. Just this tournament is total chaos, and I love it. I love it. Speaking of total chaos, Gene Taylor with the contract extension as we get rolling. Right, I just dive right in.
Dive right in.
Happened right before we started recording, so there's no questions about it. Very interesting. And like I told you guys, and I'll say this publicly, is I take this to mean General Myers is retiring. This is a typical university thing. Here's a contract, there's a contract. I mean, Gene needed to be extended or something. He was entering his final year, and, it helps with recruiting.
Definitely.
I don't know. Like recruiting fundraisers and social media people. Heaven forbid that, an AD or a coach actually has to face the end of a contract like a normal freaking human being. Actually, us normal human beings don't have contracts. We just live paycheck to paycheck. But anyhow, he gets about a cool $1 million to BAD through 2027, which I imagine is kind of his retirement year. I really don't have opinions on it. I mean, I know people are worked up, but got to have an AD.
Yeah. And even, like you said, General Myers might be retiring. Well, he could do anything. It doesn't matter what he does. And I would say that I'm pretty confident that he's going to be retiring soon, He
doesn't want to be working.
Yeah. He's, 79, 80? I don't know how old he is.
He was supposed to be like a one and done university president. But the Board of Regents suck so bad they can't make good hires. You got to hit reset at both Wichita State and then KU recently. They're just got a mess. I'll do it. I'll be president. I got an undergraduate degree in PR. Gills, you'd be a good university president.
Thank you.
You're job hunting.
Yeah.
Why don't you just put in an application? You never know. The Board of Regents is high. They might hire you.
Yeah. Go for it.
I mean, just directly hands-on. Child prodigy. Speaking of prodigies, if you need the best in alcohol sales, stop by the fridge right here in town. And make sure you head out to Tanner's. We're wearing out our welcome at Tanner's during the NCAA tournament. And the high-low. It's kind of funny. I've attempted to return to Aggieville, and I've only really been to one bar. Because it's basketball. And
me and Cole invited you out. You didn't want to come out to the other bars.
Well, what day was that? Was that like at 1:30 in the morning? You sent me that text or something?
That was, I guess. I've done it a few times. I don't know if you remember every time I've said it, but
I'm usually in bed. Usually, see, when I respond to you, this is an old man secret here. When I respond to you from one of your texts from Aggieville at 1:30 in the morning, it's usually because I had to get up and pee, and I checked the phone.
I thought you were still drinking. Okay, my bad.
No, never. Not me. Probably on my way to church. How are our questions this week, Zach?
They're okay.
Well, that was resounding.
I mean, they're fine. What do you want? What
I don't
do you want
know.
me to say? They're really good. Sell it to you.
And we're going to do an overtime. Right after we record this, we'll have an overtime for Friday because I know you people have an empty spot in your soul that needs to be filled with stupidity. And that's what we do with the overtime. Let's just get going. Who's got the questions first?
I'll read the first half.
Here we go. Here's Zach.
From Herdez Joe, so is losing this walk-on, Joe Petrakis, a big deal, or is it because this gets bruised to something like 20 transfers in 3 years? Either way, this can't be normal and can't simply be blamed on COVID, or am I overreacting?
You're overreacting on this one. I mean, this is what's interesting about it to me, is he's a walk-on who got a one-semester scholarship, but I think he enjoyed being on scholarship, so now he wants to go somewhere else and be on scholarship because he was going to go back to being a walk-on unless they didn't fill their scholarships. I mean, that's a given. But what strikes me is the only reason he was probably extended an offer, well, two reasons. One, he's tall, but two, he is a lifelong K-State fan and always wanted to play here, and he just was a perfect guy to come in as a walk-on. He's the guy that every program has that all I wanted to do is play basketball at this university, and I'll walk on to do it. So, him departing does set off a few alarm bells. I think the thing about him, Gills, I want your opinion on this, is I felt like when he did get chances to play, he held up his end of the bargain. I think he legitimately has a reason to be a little upset that he didn't get some minutes. When they got into foul trouble or something, they didn't put him out on the court. They only started to play him in late game situations when it was kind of decided. I think he earned a spot. I'm not talking 10 minutes, but 3 minutes in relief at the end of a half, the first half, to try to get you to halftime without a third foul on a big man. I don't know.
There's no reason he shouldn't have been in an Austin Budke type situation playing. I'd say he could play at least 10 minutes in the Big 12. I mean, the limited times we saw him, he outscored Cade Cunningham, and he looked pretty good. So my theory is he wants to play and actually play. So I think he'll get up a good mid-major, not a good mid-major, but, your Bradleys or your Drakes or Omahas, whatever. Yeah. So I think he'll get a good chance, and he wants to play. I'm not alarmed by this one at all. Obviously, the whole Dejuan stuff and Antonio for sure, but I'm okay with Joe leaving. I think he's going to have success where he ends up.
And with how bad K-State was this year, why not throw Joe out on the floor?
Yeah.
Why not? He should have been playing, regardless of perceived skill level or scholarship level, whatever he was brought in to do. It's clear that the other people in front of him weren't doing what they were brought in to do. Why not go with another option?
Yeah, the only thing that alarms me about it is he's a kid that was willing to walk on so he could be at K-State, and then he got a little taste of it, and he's departing. I don't know if he'll end up in the Valley or the Summit or maybe as low as, I don't mean low, but maybe he steps down to Division II and plays at Washburn or something like that. I mean, we just saw a Manhattan kid named the top defensive player or player of the year.
Player of the year.
In Division II. Yeah. Yep. So, I mean, you just got to find your spot and make the most of it. That's true about everything in life. I wish him luck. He was a good kid. That was a fun interview when we had him on the post game. He was peeing himself. He was so happy. It was just so surreal to him. It's like I've never met someone, interviewed someone so happy to have me interview them. It's like, really? It's really not that big a deal.
Yeah. It was after a loss, too. He was very happy.
Yeah. But he shut down the best player in the country.
Yep.
Maybe not shut down, outperformed.
It's a factual statement, right, Zach?
Yep. From Herdez Joe, why is the university footing the bill for recruiting when players don't stay? Outside of 2020, who is still here from the previous 3 recruiting classes?
That's crazy, man.
Mike
McGrill coming back.
Does he even count, though?
Yeah.
It was so long ago.
It's crazy. The constant churning through players is just absolutely amazing. And it looks like they're into the transfer portal quite a bit. They're going to have some luck. It's really competitive out there, particularly for what they want, which is a scoring guard. Great opportunity to come in, though. I mean, it's a great opportunity. You're going to be able to step in and start. Now with Dejuan gone, it clears a spot. I don't know. And plus, on top of that, I mean, if you're looking at from the coach's perspective, if you can get 2 or 3 guys that they're going to be one and done, 5th-year seniors or whatever. I mean, now you buy yourself another year for recruiting. Like, you can start working on the 23 kids and ramp it up. It's so late to get quality players for 22. I mean, or 21. What are we? 21? 20?
Right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 21.
Yeah, 21. So you can maybe start looking forward to 22 for the class. I get so confused. I don't even know what year it is. The pandemic just stole my whole world went on pause. I can't deal with this. So yeah, maybe then invest time in future guys instead of trying to scramble. Just use the portal right now. I mean, hell, bring guys in the portal, and if they leave, they leave, because it's the same thing that's happening with your recruits. It's just incredible amount of overturn. Just got to hang on to these freshmen it's kind of your Waterloo at this point. You got to make a stand at your Alamo. You can't lose this freshman class.
Next question is from Salt Hawk Cat. Do you think the longer we go without any news from our basketball program indicates that Bruce will be back?
Yeah. I mean, again, if you go back to the original rumors, it was about retirement, and I don't think any of those rumors said tomorrow. So I don't know. But they are recruiting. So I mean, they're proceeding as if they're coming back, and I'm going to say that all that talk's still out there. But at this point, you don't know if it's legitimate talk or coaches being gossips out there, because it's still making the rounds through coaching circles. So I think he intends on coming back. We'll see what all takes place, but we are focusing on. Gil's had a story up about UMKC, Kansas City player. Man, I'm not used to that. Yeah. It's UMKC. It still is UMKC.
Still is.
The Kansas City player. What's his name? I totally...
Brandon McKissick.
Because I misspelled it when I Google searched.
Mm-hmm. He played pretty good here.
Yeah, I mean, he's good. He averaged almost 20 points a game. Mm-hmm. And plus, he was the defensive player of the year in the conference. So that's exactly what Bruce saw. I mean, that's the home run right there. Oh, I get a scorer who does defend. I mean, everyone wants that, but if you're Bruce Weber, that's like hitting the lottery. So we'll see what that does, but they're working it hard, and we've got Gills locked in on recruiting to continue to cover that.
Yeah, until we see either a let up on the recruiting front or an announcement. I mean, I think it's time to just think that he's going to come back at this point. But a timeline I posted on Wabash in a certain scenario, that was still going to be a long time if that one was going to happen. I still think that with retirement, it's not a firing, it's not imminent. If he moves to another role, whatever it is, it could be a little while. But as they've indicated on the recruiting trail, that they're still getting after it.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but why would they let him go anytime before May 1st?
If there was just some kind of timing to it. I mean,
Okay.
Like if they knew who they wanted and they needed to move. But I don't, I mean, if it's really retirement, it could happen June 1st.
Yeah.
And if you're Bruce, you might try to manipulate the system so that you can retire and try to get Chris Lowry the job, which I don't think there's any way that would actually happen, but that might be in your motivation.
I mean, look at Wake Forest last year. Didn't they fire Danny Manning after May 1?
Yeah.
I mean, there's, oddly enough, the timeline seems to have shifted to allow.
And they landed a great candidate.
Right. They got a good coach. So, I don't think that there's I don't think it's unreasonable anymore to think that May could come and you can switch coaches pretty easily, especially after a pandemic here like this. I think that anything could be on the table, but as we've seen, as long as they're still hitting the recruiting trail, I would count on them being back.
I'm going to add another layer into this rumor mill. There has been talk that Chris Lowry is looking maybe to get a head coaching position. He was really good at Southern Illinois. Fizzled out on him. I mean, as I've always said, he's the perfect example of a young coach who needs to hop when you're the hot guy. You need to move on, because he stayed for another contract and it fizzled on him. So there's talk about maybe him trying to get a head coaching job, and if that happens, it becomes very intriguing with Bruce Weber, because they're kind of connected at the hip. We'll see, and I mean, some of the movement out there might create a gap behind a person that Chris might be able to fill.
From Herdez Joe, does the Big 12's performance as a whole in the tournament affect how we should evaluate what Bruce did with the program this year? Is now the time to move on in men's basketball? And at what point can the problem no longer solve itself?
What do you think about how the Big 12 performed, Gills?
It's tough, man. I mean, it's tough. You can't deny what the Pac-12 has done against the Big 10 and the Big 12. So
it's crazy. I don't think anyone has a rational explanation for it because the Pac-12's been so bad. Mm-hmm. They get better in a year, or it doesn't make sense to me. Folks, this isn't just the Big 12. The Big 10 was, everyone considered that the best conference, and it's fallen apart. I mean, they're down to Michigan. So, I mean, you got the Sweet 16 where the two best conferences as perceived in the world of basketball have one each. It's incredible. I do agree with some of the premise of this question that maybe the competition wasn't quite as good as we all thought. And I started to suspect that. I've been saying that for a couple of weeks, that I wasn't blown away by the level of hoops being played in the Big 12. I thought the teams didn't look quite as sharp, but it wasn't brilliant because I was comparing them to the Big 10 where I thought the teams were better. And so, I mean, that ended up being bad. Never once in my line of thinking that I should probably look at the Pac-12. Maybe that's the best conference. Not once would I have ever thought that. It's crazy what is taking place in this postseason, but it's very fitting of the year that we've been going through.
I'll ask the next question before making my point. Last question of the podcast from El Camino Cat.
The podcast or the half?
The half.
What are you doing here, man? Are you just trying to get rid of us?
I didn't mean to push the fast forward button there. I'm so sorry. Last question of the first half from El Camino Cat. Were the Big 12 and Big 10 overrated, or were their struggles in the tournament just a fluke of a single elimination tournament?
What do you think?
I think you can chalk it up to a single elimination tournament. Because, I mean, if you turn the tournament into best 2 of 3 series on each level, I think that the Big 10 and the Big 12 prevail.
Right.
I think that with the single elimination, just the way that the tournament's built with upsets and everything like that, I think that if you played series, which I'm not advocating for, the tournament's fine the way it is, but I don't think that a single elimination tournament is the best way to determine who the best team is. You know, they were the champion. They were the best team in that vacuum, you know, the hand that they were dealt. But I don't think that a single elimination tournament necessarily means that you were the best team that year.
What's interesting about this for me is you can look at some of these teams in these two conferences and say, okay, they would have won 2 out of 3. I mean, I would say that confidently about Illinois against Loyola. I mean, Porter Moser is a great single game coach. Like, apparently the tournament really fits him. He can get his team ready to exploit the weaknesses of the other team to the point where they don't have enough time to adjust. But I would take Illinois if they played twice more. I mean, I just would. But after watching what Oregon did to Iowa as a lower seed and what USC did to Kansas as a lower seed, I wouldn't make that same bet. I would take the Pac-12 team both times. I was fascinated by how athletic and long and it isn't really good basketball. It's effective basketball. Just kind of get up and down the court and turn it into an athletic contest. USC just absolutely clowned Kansas. Mm-hmm. I mean, that was a complete mismatch. And now, if you look at that, maybe you have the formula if you're a Kansas State or who else? Iowa State, how you should construct your team to be effective in this conference. And you know who that is? That's getting guys like Suri Lewis and trying to develop them. Long, athletic, hyper athletic, to go with, you know, more of a pure approach to basketball, the Porter Moser approach, which is you're the shooter, you're the rebounder, you do this, you do that. I mean, it's a real Jack Hartman style. Everyone's got to defend. We defend as a team, and we all have our roles on offense. I mean, that's the other end of that. It's like the Big 12 somewhere stuck in between where they're trying to be athletic but not athletic enough to be at the highest level. Maybe Baylor is. And you're not pure enough as a basketball program. I mean, that's kind of what's gotten Tech by, but they don't look that way anymore. I don't think the Big 12 as a brand is playing real pure basketball. Honestly, it's more Big 10. I mean, Iowa's kind of built that way. They're not really athletic, but they play pure basketball. So somewhere in there, you got to pick your battle. You can't be one. You can't be somewhere in between, I guess is what we're learning in this world. And it's all about matchups. Every tournament's the same. Who'd you pull? That's a horrible matchup. You're going to lose. Oh, the 16 seed beat the 1. Now you get to play the 16 seed. Oh, you pull Creighton in the first round, a team that you have obvious motivation to beat. I mean, so much of it is about who you pull, when you pull them, and survive and advance. It's cliche, but it's so true.
Loyola was criminally underseeded.
Yeah, I agree.
Like they should have been at least a 5, if not higher.
But were they like ranked 9 in KenPom?
7, I thought, and like number 1 defense.
Yeah,
like they're one of the best teams in the tournament. And it's not unreasonable to think what they did. I mean, it's unfortunate they did it to Illinois, but when you look at the stats, not really unreasonable. They should have been ranked higher.
We continue to misapply what conference you're in to how good you are. Because now I'm talking about tournament format. If you plop Abilene Christian down in the middle of the Big 12, they're just going to get destroyed over the course of a season. But you put them on the court with Texas, and you got good players who are confident, know how to win, play together, they're going to get you. I mean, they got a guy they got a starter who kind of looks like me. I mean, he doesn't look like an athlete at all. He's got the belly. He kind of runs up and down and does his thing, but they make it work, and they can make it work for one game at a time. I do think we tend to look at schools like the Missouri Valley and just say, well, probably 8 seeds the best they can do, right? When that was wrong. Drake was the last team in. They beat Wichita State. I mean, Drake was pretty good. We saw Drake. How about Bruce scheduling that opening tournament? We're going to bring in Drake and Colorado. Those are teams we can play with, and they both turned out to be really good. Really good this season.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm disappointed for the Big 12, but getting back to some of the premises of these questions, I think it shows that maybe the pathway to the upper half of this conference isn't as daunting as we once thought, and that the biggest obstacle to that has been mental. That when they step on the floor with Kansas, they feel like they can't compete. Somebody forgot to tell USC the same thing. We'll be back after the break with more of your questions from Wabash Station.
The PowerCat Podcast will be right back.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
Is your January looking dry? Get some lotion. Get a humidifier. And better yet, get Drizzly, the go-to app for drink delivery. With Drizzly, you can compare prices across local stores to get the best price on a huge selection of drinks perfect for dry January. Every single time. Non-alcoholic wines? Have a look. Ready-made mocktails? Grab a straw and order them up. Beer without the alcohol? Yep, take your pick. You can find all of them here, in the app, in that phone that's in your hand. Could it be any simpler? Nope, not a chance. So shop for great deals on all your dry January beverages or other drinks and get them delivered to your door or blanket fort, maybe. Download the Drizzly app or go to drizzly.com. That's DRIZLY.com. Must be 21 plus, not available in all locations. And don't forget to lotion up your elbows. They're looking a little dry.
We now send it back to the Power Cat Podcast.
Welcome back to the Power Cat Questions Podcast. Tim Fitzgerald, Zach Carlson, Ryan Gilbert. We're ushering you through the questions from Wabash Station as my dogs hang out in the office. The pandemic has changed things. I was talking with Bob Lutz, who does radio out of Wichita, and now he's still doing it from home, and his dog was barking in the background. And I told him, I'm thankful that today it wasn't my dogs barking. And he goes, before the pandemic, I would judge people for those kind of things. That it was clearly they were working from home, and now we just all accept it. Like I see someone on Fox or CNN or, being interviewed, and they're clearly just on their iPhone with their AirPods in, and, they're just winging it. Before they'd have to get the satellite truck over to the house and have someone beam it up, and now it's like, we'll just Zoom it. We'll just connect you digitally. It's fine. Oh, we're sponsored by The Fridge. You can connect digitally with them via their new app. I got an alert about a sale the other day. That was nice. Stop into The Fridge whenever you're in Manhattan. Make sure you get down to Aggieville and support your local businesses like Tanner's and the High-Low, sponsors of our segments. Please support local businesses. We've weathered the storm fairly well through the pandemic, but these are important times now for all those businesses. Just come on into Manhattan and say hi to everyone. Manhattan's back in business. Aggieville's open back up. Sure, you got to wear a mask when you're not eating or drinking, but it's back to business. Kind of fun. Here we go. More of your questions from Wabash Station. Zach?
Here's Gills, right?
Here's Gills.
First question of the second half from Ohio Power Cat. We have a lot of depth at quarterback this year. How do you keep them all engaged in the offense so we don't end up losing someone to the transfer portal?
Oh, they will.
Yeah.
Excuse us?
Daphne thinks so, too.
Yeah, they will. Someone will transfer. It's just the way the world works nowadays, I would imagine. But you stop and think about it. Skylar's, this is it. Even if he's hurt again, this is it. Will Howard will be his backup, and will probably come in a little bit more than normal. Yeah, I think they've talked about that, trying to design some things just for him. Jake Rubley wants to redshirt, but he can still play the 4 games. So
right.
If the team, it's really up to the team. Be efficient enough and get open to the lead so you can put in the backups. John Lewis is, hey, what are you doing? John Lewis is the one that I'm kind of curious about. How long is he going to put up with this? And shouldn't they try to get another role for him at some point that would incorporate him in other ways? But if Rubley really is redshirting, you need him to be your third string. You got to have a third guy. So It's just the reality of it. It is unprecedented depth, but we know through the history of recent college football that when you get this kind of depth, it means someone will leave.
And Mess kind of alluded to it last week about running a sort of wildcat package with somebody, So I think that they're going to need to figure out a way to get as much participation from the guys as possible. But like you said, Fitz, you can count them up on your fingers. There's too many quarterbacks for 3 spots, realistically. So somebody's probably going to leave, or somebody needs to switch positions.
Yep.
And whether it's, wide receiver or, going to the defense, I don't really know. But, they did it with Ryan Hennington. They moved him to everywhere. He's a Swiss Army knife, basically.
I don't understand this. So they move him from quarterback to safety, which is a natural evolution for a quarterback. Because as a safety, you need to understand what the offense is doing, yada, yada, yada. Now they've moved him up to linebacker, which if you've ever seen Ryan Hennington, you'd be like, what? But he's at 210, which is what now Big 12 linebackers tend to be, and Klanderman was just raving about him.
We'll get into that.
Yeah. I think all coaches are the same. The guy who does it right is going to get lots of attention in the spring.
Yeah.
From I Like Pickles Cat, good call, Fitz, on asking how the offense looks. Is it good or bad that Klanderman seemed, so enthused about what he was seeing against the offense?
I loved his answer. If you ask me, they're turning the ball over and taking a lot of sacks. And it's great. Yeah, I don't know. I'll be honest. I was just kind of struggling for something to ask. I don't know if it was a brilliant question. I just was trying to participate. But I love Clanderman. I hope he gets him going, and I like this approach he's taking with stripping it down even further and just focusing on tackling. I was texting with a buddy. I mean, you can make defense complex, but basically the three components to be a good defensive team is get your team lined up right, have all the gaps accounted for, win more battles in man-to-man, whether you're a lineman or anyone. Win your battle with the guy you're matched up with, and then do a good job tackling. If you do those three things, if you line up right, you win your one-on-one battles more than you lose, and you're sound in tackling, you will be a good defense. And, sure, calling the right blitz or the right scheme, that can help. But it can also get you out of alignment, get you out of winning the battle with the guy in front of you. And, what every offense wants to do, put you in space, make it try to tackle in open areas instead of in a box. And that's much more challenging.
Was it that West Virginia game where K-State missed like a dozen tackles?
I look at tackles as errors. Mm-hmm. In baseball, you can't give the other team more than 3 outs. You have an error, 4 outs, 5 outs. And that's what a missed tackle is to me. I mean, when you have a glaring missed tackle that should be no gain or even a loss, and it goes for 15 and the first down, that alone can be game-changing. Just like dropping a fly ball with 2 outs. It can totally change the complexion of the entire game because you didn't get them out or offense off the field when you had the opportunity right in front of you.
Another question from I Like Pickles. Cat Clanderman seems so positive. Is there any good way to tell what is true and what is sunshine pumping?
No. Without us being able to see practices, no. Or really, get Joe at Tanner's with 4 beers in him.
He'd still probably sunshine pump.
Because you love your guys, know? It's like, these are my guys. I'm going to battle with them. I'm going to try to get them ready, but you got to have trust and belief in them. So, yeah, he's a really positive guy. And so was Hazelton, though. Scotty looked like a guy you didn't want to meet in the woods, but you shaved that beard off of him. He was a sweet, nice guy.
I feel like you would want to meet him in the woods due to the beard. He knows what he's doing in the woods.
That's true. I don't know. I think you're right. He is a very positive guy, and it is hard to read through that. And as you're around a coach for extended periods of time, and, this is only the 3rd year with Clanderman, really the 2nd year with him as a D coordinator, and the 1st year hardly counts because we weren't really around him. You start to read the clues and the hints, and they get comfortable with you, and they'll say, yeah, we got a second linebacker. Or, they'll give you a little something there that will help you get some better context. So I'm looking forward to getting back in front of coaches because you can start building relationships better.
Yeah, and I don't think it's necessarily that he's saying anything untrue. I just think he's very positive on what he's seeing, I guess. And I'm sure there's plenty of stuff that he's not going to talk about, but, the stuff that he's willing to at least share, that's going to be truthful. So it just probably seems like sunshine pumping because that's the best stuff he sees. So that's what he wants to talk about.
Next question from K-Ned. Is it just me, or is a big difference between the Kleiman era versus the Snyder era that they talk up every player? Snyder mentioning a name was a huge deal. If genuinely true, we are in for a good year, but could set the table for extra frustration.
I don't know. It's just a little bit different styles there.
I feel like with Snyder, he'd name a name that either you hadn't talked about or you weren't expecting. Like, there's little nuggets, I guess, from Snyder. Here,
but a lot of times they were useless.
Yeah, that is also true.
He was clearly doing the trick. I'm going to mention this guy because he shows up on time. He's always at every meeting in the front row. He always has his shirt tucked in properly, and he's a good kid, and he's never late for weights, even though he lifts, benches 123 pounds. And I'm going to talk him up because he sets an example. Kenneth, I think that's Kenneth that asked it, right?
Yeah. Yep.
I think what you're getting here is you knew how to read Snyder's clues We all did. You know, it wasn't just the media, but eventually all the fans were like, oh, okay, I know what you're saying here, Coach. And now you're in uncharted territory because every coach has their own way of going about things. And you'll start to pick up on things with Kleiman as we advance too. But in defense of Kleiman, you know, Bill made himself very public in the fact that you learned how to read his clues, because we would be on our third Snyder press conference. Kleiman's like, I'll do the first one. Okay, Mass, you got the second one. Klanderman, you got the third one. Players, you got this one. We got assistant coaches on Thursday. Van Malone will be next week. Some more players, more coaches or whatever. And then Kleiman will do the last one. You know, he kind of spreads it around so you don't quite get as familiar with everything. You don't pick up the string of clues from one press conference to another that they might be having problems at certain positions.
Yeah, but it's nice hearing from the rest of the staff, though.
That's awesome. Awesome. Your context and texture of your coverage is so much better when you get assistant coaches and coordinators and a variety of players. It just really helps. It's a better experience for the fans, and thus it's better for us doing our job because it's more enjoyable, and you kind of get a better feel for things as you go over the course of every book. Every football season to me is a novel, and every press conference, every game, that's chapters in that book, and you kind of get more context of the story.
Next question from I Like Pickles Cat. How is it possible that linebacker is our deepest position with 4 scholarship players?
I call BS on that.
So we're looking through that sunshine pump in there.
Yeah. I mean, he mentioned the guys. He didn't pull out anyone saying, well, that Zach Carlson's really stepped up. And, you know, he said Ryan Hennington, but do we really believe Ryan Hennington's going to be on the field?
Worrying if he is. That's not deep. You're not deep if Ryan Hennington is on the field at linebacker at any time during the game. Unless you're up by 50 and it's the fourth quarter. Sure, put him on the field.
Maybe he turned out to be Ted Sims. I don't know. I'm not sure, but I mean, again, I feel like it's a position group that is competing really hard. And sometimes coaches see incredible depth as being there's not much separation between 1 and 6. When in reality, that means 1 isn't as good as you need him to be. I mean, they're all competing and pushing. It means they're close. So, no, I don't believe that for a second. I don't believe that for a second. But he was trying to send a message somewhere, somehow.
Next question from K-Ned. With a definite end to the dead period in sight, will recruiting decisions slow until June 1st, as most recruits might decide they can wait that long to take at least visits?
Man, I appreciate the question, but we're in such uncharted territory with this. I don't know how it's going to manifest itself. They've let this linger way too long. This is put a program like Kansas State at such a huge disadvantage. If you're a program close to a giant recruiting base, Metroplex, or like in Texas where you might have 50 high schools near you that kids can just drop by, you know, can come visit your campus. If you're in a rural area like Kansas State or like Boise State or anyone like that, and players getting to your campus isn't easy for them, this has been a huge detriment. They have damaged programs by extending this so long. It's ridiculous. I understand they want to be cautious, but at this point, everyone knows how to function within the pandemic. And if you're in a position where, like, mom or dad is in an at-risk group, you don't go, or they don't go. I mean, everyone has to maneuver through this, and I feel like the NCAA has overthought this, big brothered it too much. I mean, nobody's going to be holding recruiting visits where nobody's wearing masks and they're just going to lick each other's faces or whatever. I mean, it's ridiculous. You're going to be wearing a mask. You're going to be distanced. You know, you're going to knuckle punch instead of our forearm collide. What is that called? Instead of shaking hands.
Elbow five?
Elbow touch?
Yeah, I don't know what that is. That's weird.
Elbow bump?
Elbow bump?
That's what we had to do at Canes because of all the chicken that we would handle. So we'd go elbow bumps.
Man, see, that's a kind of valuable input on the podcast that we have previously lacked. Could Riley Gates put that out there?
No, he didn't work fast food.
No.
That's a nice little hint towards one of the questions on the overtime.
He drove a combine.
Did he really?
Yeah, he got his farmer's whatever.
He worked on a golf course.
And he was driving I don't know if he was driving a combine, but he was driving a truck. He worked ag for like 1 year, and then he realized, I'm a journalist.
Yeah, he's a city boy.
Yeah, he's a city boy from the big town of Beloit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Gills is out here. Gills actually killed the chickens with his hands. That was part of his job.
Yep.
And snapped their necks. Oh, that got dark real fast.
Back to the question, though.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's almost April. We're 2 months away from June 1st. I don't really remember, in years previous, how many decisions were actually being made in April to May. But if you went the entire football season without going to a campus, I feel like, hey, if I can go, and get a flight and a whole weekend trip paid for by the university out of it, I might as well go take some visits over the summer. So I think that, you're not going to see a lot of decisions be made between now and June 1st without, these visits. But yeah, I think that, if you're able to wait that long during football season without setting foot on a campus officially, you can at least wait, just a few more weeks. But it'll be interesting to see how many decisions get made over the summer quickly, because I think after a few visits, I think this could be a very big summer for recruiting decisions and commitments.
Yeah, I'm with you, Zach. I mean, if I was on the fence for a few schools, why not wait? What is it, 2 or 3 months? Yeah.
8 weeks, 9 weeks.
Might as well.
Whatever it is. Just do it.
Last question of the podcast from Get Out More Cat. How good at football do you need to be simply be a football school?
That's a great question. That's deep.
Yeah.
Man.
Well, what do you consider a football school? What schools right now are football schools? Alabama, Clemson,
Nebraska.
If we're going back,
No,
yeah.
No, I think it's more about finances than wins and losses. I mean, you become a football school when you're a moneymaker. You're selling a lot of tickets. Donors are stepping up. So to me, Nebraska would still fit that, even though they're not winning as much. Their fans have been loyal and stuck with it. You become a football school because you're such a financial engine. You don't need to have basketball generating money as much.
But it relates to success at some point, at least somewhat recently.
Right.
At least 25 years with Nebraska's case.
Right.
There had to be some sort of success. You can't look at the Pac-12 and look at Oregon State, Washington State. You can't look at any of those, 3 schools and saying you're this school. You're just a school. USC is probably a football school.
Mm-hmm. Well, the complexity of this question
there's a lot of schools out there like that. Yeah.
What do you consider a football school, and what would they consider a football school? Like Ole Miss, they don't win a lot, but I consider it a football school. I mean, they're SEC. Their culture of their university is built around football more than basketball or baseball's pretty good, but.
Yeah, they're a baseball school.
That's what's amazing about the SEC is you can actually find schools like South Carolina that have considered baseball to be their second sport, which is so different than we have around here, mostly because you can't really have that due to weather, although Nebraska and Wichita State have been pretty close to that. I mean, Wichita State in football, but Nebraska baseball for many years, you could almost consider it to be their secondary sport. Yeah, it's a great question because we look at football schools, Ohio State, you're in the playoff, Clemson.
Yeah.
But, I think there's more to it than that. And I think you're a football school when, culturally and financially, that's your thing. I mean, North Dakota State's a football school. I mean, it's part of the culture. It's intertwined in everything they do. So, yeah, I think in the late 90s, early 2000s, K-State was clearly a football school. A lot of buildings on campus, a lot of stuff happened connected to the university that were incredibly positive because of football. I mean, it was funding everything else. Basketball was really struggling. I'll say this, it's a hell of a lot easier being a football school than a basketball school.
Yeah.
I mean, Kansas is constantly walking a tightrope financially. Now, they might have a bigger budget, but they also know if basketball drops off, you can lose basketball pretty quickly. We've seen that around the country. Nebraska is a perfect example of you don't really lose football. It doesn't happen immediately. It's built into the culture. Now, you can say basketball at Kansas is built into the culture, but we've seen dips in their program lead to open seats in Allen Fieldhouse. And if they get hit with a 2-year probation and Bill Self leaves and they don't make the right hire, you're going to see open seats in Allen Fieldhouse. And one thing you're not going to notice, but it will happen, is the price of a seat license will plummet. Yeah, football school is a good thing to be. K-State is more of a football school than a basketball school. But at this point, just need to be better at everything.
Yeah. But to your argument, looking at the SEC, what school isn't a football school? I mean, even Kentucky, they're decent at football now.
Yeah, but they're basketball.
They're still a basketball school, don't get me wrong. But unless you are a basketball school, you are a football school, whether you're good at football or not. That's kind of what it comes down to.
Vanderbilt's a medical school.
Or a baseball school.
Baseball school, that's true. Sorry, David Price.
But, yeah, you're one or the other in my eyes, and you aren't really a football school unless you're good at football right now, in my opinion. Nebraska, a little bit like you, but I really wouldn't consider them at this point, to be a football school. Just they aren't competing at the level that they expected to compete at when they moved to the Big Ten.
Tennessee would still consider itself a football school. Arkansas would, even though both of those schools have had good basketball programs in the recent years. So, yeah. I
think right now a football school is, are you making the playoff pretty much every year? And there's only, 4 of those teams.
Right.
OU, Ohio State, Clemson, Alabama. And then you have some other mixed in. Texas A&M, football school. Texas is a football school, but
Texas A&M is just a cult. It's not really a football, basketball, baseball. It's just a cult.
You're not wrong.
Just a weird place.
But I think, at least right now, if you want to call yourself a football school, you need to be in the top 25 year in, year out. And top 10 half of that time.
See, again, that's how I look at things differently, whether you're perceiving it as a fan or as an institution. I mean, Tennessee has not been top 25. Nebraska hasn't been top 25, but I guarantee you they view themselves as an institution, as a football school.
Yeah, I agree.
Who else? Who would be a small school that would consider them? Boise State.
Absolutely.
It's a football school. That's where they derive most of their passion, probably their donations, and, that's their brand, is out on the football field, even though the football field's a weird color.
Oregon. I mean, look at other schools, like Colorado State. They just built a brand new football stadium on campus. Whether they're good at football or not, football school, because they have so much invested into it. But
it's a good example. They can't get the money to rebuild an existing stadium in Lawrence, Kansas, but a Mountain West team can build an all-new stadium. Maybe that's because you're a basketball school and your donors don't want to give money to the football program. Okay, boys. Good effort. We're all a little bit congested today. Weirdness in the weather. Maybe sleeping dogs have done it all around us. Look at him. That's just pathetic. What a life he leads. It's too bright in here, so he's got his head buried. Oh, for God's sakes. Thanks for listening to the PowerCat Questions Podcast. I'm Fitz. That was Zach and Gills. Your Z team is out of here, but we'll be back on Friday with an overtime.
PowerCat Podcast. All rights reserved. GoPowerCat.com and Spirit Street Publishing.
Fill me in. What happened?
30 years ago, the convent stole our children.
Ruth Wilson and Daryl McCormick star in the new Showtime original series, inspired by true events, The Woman in the Wall.
They're trying to bury this. All of it. The whole world looks at some people, but others just disappeared.
Girls were locked up and children were stolen. And you're trying to tell me no one knew anything about it?
I'm just trying to find my child!
The Woman in the Wall, now streaming on Paramount Plus, only with the Paramount Plus with Showtime plan.